Hey, everybody. It's JD and Greg Silver. Greg, you look stunned. Why are you stunned, Greg? Why do you look surprised right now as it is Dubs OT officially here for KNBR on YouTube, Twitch, and Twitter/X. And this is a first for us. We're on the air here before the game is over on YouTube because the Warriors are down. I'm looking at it right now by 51 right now with a minute and a half to go. And they trailed in Boston by as many as 56. It was 118-62. 56-point deficit early in the fourth quarter. And yeah, we talked about, was this a game that could validate some of the Warriors' success of late? But it's ugly. I don't think anybody would have expected the type of performance from the Warriors that we've seen throughout the afternoon here in Boston. We can get into what it means and the big picture and all that, but just an all systems fail for the Warriors in Beantown this afternoon.
Yes, not a very pretty one. Don't know if I could say anything positive from a Warriors standpoint outside of you got the ones that counted in 2022 in that building. They got it taken to them from the jump. I know it was 21-21. Steph Curry gets subbed out, and yikes.
Yeah, 23-1 for the rest of the quarter. 23-1 over the final 6:05. So the Celtics end up 44-22 at the end of the first quarter, 44-21 at the end of the first quarter. I've lost count. 44-22 into the first quarter, a 23-1 run. And then Boston would outscore the Warriors 38-16 in the second quarter. There was a 61-17 stretch of the first half. The final 18 minutes and 5 seconds. Warriors were down 79-34, then 82-38, a 61-17 run over the final 18 minutes after it was tied at 21. And it got so bad that Steve Kerr pulled the starters. Well, at least he pulled the veterans, Steph Curry, Klay Thompson, who came up with a little bit of an injury, and Draymond Green, and then Kuminga and Moody were basically done for a good long stretch after that. And it's been a lot of Robinson and Guy Santos and Trace Jackson Davis and Lester Quinones down the stretch here for the Warriors. But the Celtics were on one. I thought the game actually started out, Greg, pretty high level both ways. The first thing
Warriors
to get
weren't making shots, but I didn't think they looked like a disaster at the get-go.
They weren't, and the Celtics were, but a part of that equation was Jaylen Brown, who the Warriors seemingly by game plan were allowing Jaylen Brown to just take open three after open three, and he made him pay from deep in that first quarter. 19 points in the first quarter. He knocked down all five of his threes, I believe, in that quarter. And so he just really let the Warriors have it. By the way, it has gone final now. It's 140-88, the final. So the Warriors end up losing by, quick math, 52 in a game they trailed by as many as 56. Fast break points were a big part of this thing. 42-12 in terms of fast break points. So the Celtics were getting out in transition, and they were looking to do as they do, which is hit the three ball. The Warriors end up 7 for 41 from three. So the Celtics made 18 more threes than the Warriors did in this one. That's a 54-point difference right there. Quick math. In a game that the Warriors lose by 52. So we know the Celtics shoot a lot of threes. We know that was going to be a big part of the game plan, defending the three. Celtics get the highest percentage of their points off of threes in the league. And the Warriors were seemingly content trying to let Jaylen Brown cook, and Jaylen Brown cooked them.
He sure did. And it's an interesting approach because Jaylen Brown has actually fared pretty well against the Warriors for these iterations of these two cores of teams. And he had a great finals a couple of years ago against them. It's Tatum who's the one that's kind of disappeared a little bit more. And I know Tatum only took 2 shots in the first quarter, but didn't score his first bucket until late first. And luckily for Tatum's sake, he didn't really have to. And by the time he was getting heated up, well, it was just piling on to what was already a just gasoline lit fuse, fire, explosion, whatever you want to call it for the Warriors. But look, the Celtics, they are a very good team. They're now 29-3 at home. It's not like the Celtics haven't done this to other teams, but I do think that it was a bad combination of the Celtics being very good, feeling like they had something to prove after losing the finals on their home floor, and the Warriors not really being themselves and just running into a full-on buzzsaw. I mean, look, there's really not a ton of positives we can take away from it. I would just say that all in all,
I don't have any
road trip. I was just going to say a 3-1 road trip is still like that keeps you afloat, that keeps you where you want to be in the larger picture of trying to get out of the play-in or get into a playoff series. As far as this game goes, there was nothing. There's just nothing.
Yeah, nothing from this game. But yeah, you're right. I mean, that's why it was so important for the Warriors to bank wins in Washington and New York and Toronto before the game in Boston. And yeah, they played like a team that had one to play with, that had a couple of guys banged up. Stephen Curry came up on the injury report yesterday with a little bit of a knee issue. I think knee bursitis is what it was called. Was going to be a game time decision, wound up playing. Steph didn't have it in this one. He ended up 2 of 13 in 17 minutes and 0 of 9 from 3, scored just 4 points. The only player in double figures for the Warriors among the starters was Moses Moody, who had 11. And you just look at the Warriors' most impactful players from Curry to lately Kuminga to Draymond Green to Klay Thompson, Moses Moody, Chris Paul, all of the big guys, the heavy hitters, all had bad games. I mean, Chris Paul, one of 6.
Nobody was good. Nobody was good.
I mean, nobody was good. We talked about, at least I did a little bit on Twitter about, Kuminga, and I ended up, of course, getting into a back and forth, with someone who.
It's your fault.
Who chose today, and I'm not going to spend a lot of time on this, but because I don't think it in the grand scheme of things. All right, Jonathan Kuminga had a bad game. Who cares? Like, he's had enough good games to where he can have a bad game, and you bounce back to the next one, and we'll see how he fares against Milwaukee on Wednesday at Chase Center. But I did make the point, and there were a couple. Again, it's social media. It was like 2 people who were like, "Oh, there goes JD crapping all over Jonathan Kuminga. You're pointing out Kuminga not playing well, but what about everybody else?" And look, the reality is, yeah, Steph stunk today, and the Warriors' defensive game plan I thought was questionable against Jaylen Brown, and they got burned by it. Steve Kerr used the same basic rotation that he's used for weeks. Although the Warriors are down, obviously, Andrew Wiggins and Brandon Pajemski, but he used the same rotation he's used these last couple of games and the same formula that he's used these last couple of weeks today. So it's not like Steve Kerr screwed up the rotation or anything in this game. Just nobody had it. But to the point on Kuminga, the Celtics, and I do think this was notable just for future games, either against Boston or against other long, athletic, rangy teams, the Celtics really prevented the drives. And look, Kuminga's been the Warriors' secondary scorer. And so he's going to be a big part of the defensive game plan, I think, for these teams that when they go into games viewing the Warriors with a playoff level of focus and intensity. And so how he fares, it's not so much how he fares, it's just what teams look to do to him and how he handles it. It's not, oh, he had a bad game. Again, like I said, he can bounce back, but the drives were being prevented. The Celtics had some of the body types to be able to prevent those drives. They forced him to take jumpers that, as I've said a lot, he's willing to take. And I think they kind of, again, I don't want to make too much of this as far as the overall outcome, but I do think they sort of made him they broke his will a little bit, right? To continue to put his head down and try to get to the cup and try and play the way that he's been playing over the course of these last 6+ weeks when he's been great. And so I think teams, not everybody can do it because he's that good at putting his head down and getting to the paint, but I did think it was notable that the Celtics really tried to take the drives away and make him somebody that wants to shoot jumpers. And I do think there is an internal battle with Kuminga when teams do that to him, because I think he thinks that he's he's good at, he can make those shots and wants to take those shots and be more of a scorer in that way. And that's kind of what I mean when I say you break his will, and that you kind of force him to do things that he likes to do and wants to do, but you're playing into the defense's hands a little bit. So again, not the reason they lost, one of 8 equal or greater reasons that the Warriors lost in this game. Again, it was an all systems fail, but I do think it was interesting the way Kuminga, as the now number 2, basically for the Warriors, was defended by Boston. And again, not everybody's equipped to do it the way that the Celtics are.
I think it's a totally fair analysis to talk about Kuminga's game today. And yes, of course, it wasn't like Jonathan Kuminga was bad and everyone else was good and he cost them the game because they disrupted their offense. No, they had no offense. I'll give Kuminga some credit for trying to do what he has been doing and what's been leading him to success in terms of going to the basket and posting up at Derek White, at Jaylen Brown, at Jason Tatum early on. But you're not wrong at all, JD, in that he was pretty quick to settle into tough jumpers, which he is capable of making, and he wasn't making them today. And it really worked for the Celtics and both fronts. The fact that he was able to get into the habit of taking the jumpers, and even better, oh, it's a miss, that's a rebound for us, new possession. I'll get into another element of the game, and I don't want to make this whole show about our individual back and forths on social media, but we discussed a little bit over text how, as great as Moses Moody has been, he was getting a little bit exposed defensively today. And I think today was a reminder that whatever this Warriors ceiling is, and I've said this all year long and I will continue to say it, they will need Andrew Wiggins present for that ceiling to be reached. Now, the second layer of that is not me saying Andrew Wiggins needs to come back and he needs to figure his stuff out. I don't want to go on a whole Wiggins tangent. We talked about it on a couple shows already. I know you're in alignment with me on this. I know a lot of the fans are in alignment with me on this, but I still was having to put out some fires and go back and forth on social media. Look, whatever Andrew Wiggins is dealing with right now, first of all, if he was playing through this and playing poorly, you guys would be crushing him all the same, if not more. Secondly, this is all about the team and how they handle this situation. Fans do not get to decide whether they get to know what's going on. They don't get to decide what's justified in terms of how his absence is handled. And they don't get to decide how long he gets to be out and if he's privileged and X, Y, and Z. The team's handling the situation. It's not fair for fans to decide whatever is going on with Wiggins. Everyone just drop that argument right now. Never going to change on that. And if it really becomes an issue, then that's something the team can discuss with Andrew Wiggins in the offseason. I hope for his sake and his family's sake that he can be back on a basketball court, because I think that his steady play and the defense that he is able to provide on a solid night-to-night basis will really help the Warriors reach whatever that ceiling is. But you guys got to let the Andrew Wiggins thing go. Like, I'm just done with that. I'm having none of it. And I hope the best for him, because, I like Moses Moody and I like how he's filled in, but also a good reminder that Andrew Wiggins is missed on this team right now.
No, I mean, today's the kind of game where, you look at it and it's the end of the road trip and the Warriors have already banked 3. The Celtics, I think, made some comments both in game and even leading up to the game that this was one that they put a little more on. The Warriors did beat the Celtics back at Chase Center in December. Of course, the history with the 2 years ago in the finals, and the Warriors have been playing great. They also came in. I think fatigue does come into play here when it's after the 3 and 4, and then you're basically playing the 4th and 6. But it's the 4th and 6, and it's an afternoon start. Like, this wasn't a 7 or a 7:30 start. This was a 12:30 body clock start. And again, no excuses. Like, the Warriors got smoked, but I do think there were a number of little things coming into this game that led to a disadvantage, basically. That the Warrior, not having Wiggins and Podziemski, that's 2 starters right now for this team that's out. It's maybe one team feeling that they needed this game, more desperation than the Warriors had winning 8 games in a row. Like, all of those things add up to, you come out, you get off to a bad start, the Celtics are really hot, and the thing snowballs. Now, look, I don't think anybody was thinking down 50. I mean, this is kind of an all-timer. And when you look at some of the notes from the first half, I mean, it was pretty crazy when you look at it was the largest halftime lead that Celtics had ever had in their history. Think about that, from the Boston Celtics franchise history. It was the largest halftime deficit of the Steve Kerr era, down 44 points. And again, we talked about the 61-47 run that was the difference over the final quarter and a half. But I think there were a lot of little things that added up. And then you go out and you play the game, and your game plan gets blown up by Jaylen Brown immediately, because Jaylen Brown's cooking from 3-point range when basically you're letting him shoot the 3 ball. I thought that was a little strange. I'm not going to lie. I thought that was a little weird. And, again, when you come out and you're hitting every shot, I think it'll blow up any game plan. But we've seen Jaylen Brown really hurt the Warriors in the past. And when the Warriors have been successful against the Celtics in the past, a lot of the time it's been, Jaylen Brown on the drive more than the 3-point shot, but it's also been the Warriors' ability to kind of let Jaylen Brown go off a little bit, but contain Jason Tatum. And today it was just, I don't know. It was just, what did you think of the game plan? It was curious when that the Celtics basically live and die by the 3, and they've lived by the 3 to the tune of the best record in the NBA, following this win, which was their 11th consecutive win now to be 48-12. When they live and die by the 3 and shoot the 3 as well as they do and have, it was a little curious to me that the game plan is, Draymond, let Jaylen Brown just stand out there and shoot wide open ones and get into a rhythm. Kind of a fail there today, I think, for the coaching staff.
Yeah, I think it's hard to not call it a fail, right? Like, when you go out and look what happened, what am I going to say? No, it was just bad luck. Like, the Celtics lead the NBA in first quarter and second quarter scoring, and you're on their home floor. So what does that tell you? It tells you they're going to come out and try to punch you in the freaking mouth. The Warriors have been okay at taking punches at times. It's really been the blown leads, which has been more of their kryptonite this year. But you can't dig yourself into a 40-point hole in the first half and be like, oh, let's just make a little bit of a run, guys. It's fine.
No, that's not gonna cut it. So tough game plan. I will say I think it was a poor defensive game plan. Again, the Celtics getting and taking whatever they wanted. The Warriors were kind of right there with them those first 6 minutes, but then the subs came in and everything went awry for the Warriors in a major way, with the big run 23-1 at the end of the quarter. And then you add the entire second quarter to it. It ends up 61-17. Warriors lose it 140-88. Winds up being the final. It's John Dickinson and Greg Silver. It's Dubs OT with JD and Silver here for KNBR. We're on YouTube. We're on Twitch. We're on the KNBR Twitter and X live streaming as well, talking all things Golden State Warriors following the ugliest game they've had, I think, this season. Those Toronto games and Pelicans games were right there back in January at Chase, and this team's played so well on the road of late that even down a couple of starters, I don't think anybody really saw this one coming. You want to get into a couple? Greg, you got a thought there, or do you want to get into the chat a little bit?
I actually have a question for the chat, because I love the fan interaction. We still got some good numbers right now, despite what an S show this whole thing was today. I'll give you all about 10 seconds. If anyone can try to guess the last time I was sitting in this chair for a Dubs OT postgame, what game was it? Do you know the answer, JD?
I am trying to remember. The Clippers game? The Clippers game, no. Right? Wasn't the Clippers game?
It was the Draymond return from suspension game.
Oh,
against the Grizzlies. Okay. So this is kind of my punishment chair.
It wasn't the Clippers game because didn't you host the Clippers game? You hosted the Clippers game.
Oh,
so
see,
you
that was
been in
that chair. That was that chair.
Oh,
Other
you were
chair.
okay. You were in a different chair, but in the same studio. Okay, fair enough. That's good knowledge. I was sick as a dog that night, so I was playing hurt that night. So I don't recall. I do recall you hosting the show and me being your guest on that night as the Warriors got beat there before the All-Star break. They did go on and win in Utah the night after that. But we appreciate everybody who's watching on YouTube and Twitch. We got a good crowd in here. Again, it's Dubs OT with JD here, KNBR, the sports leader. Again, my question would just be, is this a one-off? I'm inclined to say yes. I mean, this is a one-off considering the circumstances, end of a trip, couple of guys out, all of those things. Celtics are a tough matchup. I know the Warriors beat them in the finals, but we're 2 years removed from that basically now. It's a different Warriors team. This is a much better, I think, Celtics team that's really been significantly better than the rest of the league for a good chunk. I know we talked about that on Just Dubs a little bit yesterday. I also do think we can get into a little bit of the narratives surrounding this one, like we discussed on Just Dubs yesterday, which is, we threw it out there. Did the Warriors need a win or at least a quality game to validate their recent success? It was talked about during the ABC national telecast. Is this being kind of a measuring stick game for the Warriors? And then the other question I wanted to throw out there, how do you rate this trip overall? I think that's the more pertinent question. We can kick both of them around. Anybody on in the YouTube chat that wants to chime in on either of those. We're going to get to a lot of comments here between now and when we call it an afternoon. Planning on going at least until 4:00 here on Dubs OT. But is it still a good, or can you call it a great trip? If you don't want to call it a great trip, I'm okay with that. Based on how today looked, I still think it's a very good trip at 3-1, and this team continues to play well on the road. And so it really comes down to the question of, are you more concerned by the fact that the Warriors didn't have it against the one legitimate contender that they faced on this trip, or are do you still think that they've got a lot of positive momentum rolling because of the 3 wins that they did earn on this trip?
I got a comment that I really liked from one of our regular Dubs devotees, Douglas Mikes. What's up, Douglas? I'm kind of with him on this. Like, I don't think you can call it a one-off in the sense that we've used the phrase one-off for the Warriors more than once or twice this year.
That's true.
And for that reason, it's kind of hard for me to say so. I do agree with Douglas Mikes in that they're definitely not in the tier of Celtics, Nuggets, Clippers. I also think, yes, they're not as bad as the score indicated today. And this kind of circles back to what we had going with our question of the night on the last Dubs game after Toronto, and then what we revisited on Just Dubs yesterday, which is, what are the narratives going to be surrounding the Warriors if they lose the game? And I said, if they blow a lead and they clearly had the game in their hands, or if they come out and get punked, which is what happened today, then it's going to be a little bit different. And my sister, who's down in Los Angeles and doesn't watch every Warriors game as much as I do.
She was locked in today, though? She was locked in today?
She was texting me in the second half and was like, why are we so bad? I'm getting a bunch of texts and saying all this stuff. And I'm explaining to her, the Warriors actually don't suck as much as they did a couple of months ago. I would have told you they were not very good a couple of months ago. I told her the Warriors are playing better. They have found an identity and they're finding rotations that work. But again, when you have a limited sample size of national televised games and you come out against competition that's better than you, and then you have 7 minutes of a 23-1 run and you look terrible and the other team is just punking you, even if it's a team that's 47-12, now 48-12, it's not going to look very good for the larger picture. So I know a lot of us on the chat, and obviously you, JD, watch every Warriors game, and you can say, no, they are not the same team as they were a couple of months ago when things were looking really bad. They truly are playing better. They have more of an identity. but I can't call it a one-off when there have been multiple games when they have either blown a bad lead, lost a game they weren't supposed to lose, or just gotten flat out outplayed by a opponent that's a caliber above them.
Well, and to that point, in Douglas Mike's point, I mean, you look at just the last 20 games now, right? Since January 24th, the Warriors have played 20 games. They're 14-6 in those 20 games. They're 13-4 in the last 17. If you go back to the Philadelphia game on January 30th, before the Warriors went on that road trip when the 49ers were in Vegas getting ready for the Super Bowl, and the Warriors 6 losses in the last 20. So they're 14-6 in the last 20. But here are the 6 losses, and you know where I'm going. The 6 losses are to Sacramento, the Lakers, the Clippers, Denver, at Boston, and then the other one is at Atlanta. The other one is at Atlanta, which was the last road loss, interestingly enough, 1 month ago today. February 3rd, Warriors lose. March 3rd, Warriors lose in Boston today. And in
they better
between
not play April 3rd.
The 8 consecutive, the 8 consecutive, they do not play on April 3rd. That's actually 1 day off in between 3 and 4, where they play Dallas a couple of times in the reschedule and some of those games that had to be moved around following the passing of Coach Miljovic. So yeah, you look at the last 6 losses, and it's Sacramento, good team, Lakers, good team, basically right there with the Warriors, Clippers, team that thinks they're a contender, Denver, champions, another excellent win last night for them at LA, Boston today. So I think a bunch of things are true. To bring it even back to your sister's point, I think this team is significantly better than they were 6 weeks ago. I think they also still are not, to Douglas Mike's point, in the category of the Denvers or the Bostons or the Clippers. You know, Lakers and Sac, that's more, I think, 50-50. I know a lot of Warrior fans probably look at the Lakers of late and think, oh, the Warriors would handle the Lakers if they played them in a big game or in a series.
I'm not gonna lie. I thought the Lakers played a great fourth quarter last night and then just lost to a team that played even better.
Yeah, and look, I mean, here's the other reality. You know, the Warriors and Lakers are now tied. You know, so and this is the other thing that I wanted to get into, and you can weigh in on the 6 losses basically in the last 20 of the 14 wins. We'll break it up. Of the 14 wins, they really have one signature win, and it's the game against Phoenix. Right? Look at all the other games. You know, Philadelphia, but Embiid went down. Clearly was hobbled in that game.
You don't count the Phoenix, first Boston?
No. I'm talking about in the last 20 games. I'm talking about this. I'm talking about this version of this team. I'm not going back through other losses to other teams, but I'm not going back there. I'm talking about this current iteration of this team since January 24th. Therefore, since they've played their best stretch of basketball this season, they have one signature win, which I think is the Phoenix game. If you want to add one, you let me know. I mean, at Utah, those Eastern road games, none of them were really impressive. You know, and again, I'm not knocking the wins necessarily. The Warriors have needed all those wins, but I do think it's a fair point to say, hey, they're playing a lot better. They're handling their business against some of the lesser teams, but they still aren't quite on the level of some of these other teams. And then the other reality, Greg, is the Warriors, for as great as they've played, 13-4 in the last 17, 14-6 in the last 20. They're still tied for 10th. Percentage points ahead of the Lakers. Both teams 4 games over 500, but the Warriors have played 2 fewer games now at 32-28 with 22 to go.
And I think that needs to be their motivation as they get back to their home floor, which is, we had a long road trip. We were tired. That was a disgusting game where you just burn the tape. And it's a good reminder for them that you can't go home and sleepwalk because you're at home, because, as you mentioned yesterday, they have a better road record than a home record this year. They haven't been the typical Warriors get fueled by their home crowd, Chase Center, Oracle, etc., and they can just show up and sleepwalk through a half and then turn it on when they need to and get it done. I think it's just another reminder of this is where you still are. You need to take care of business against the teams that you're supposed to, if you believe that you're the caliber of team that you are, and just to regain some focus. I still think 3-1 on the road. If I could grade the road trip, I'd probably say B+. Kind of hard for me to go in the A range after watching what I just had to watch, but 3-1 overall, it's like, as disgusting as that was, you could take a step back and be like, okay, they didn't shoot themselves in the foot in a way that they could. They didn't lose in Toronto when they came out sleepwalking in the first half. Like, they could have been 2-2 and lost these last two, and we'd be having a different discussion. So I think it's just, again, reminder, refocus. That was disgusting. You got to go take care of business where you're supposed to take care of business, and that starts on your home floor.
I'd still give them an A trip. I would. I'd give them an A trip. I think if you had said a week ago the Warriors are going to go 3-1 on this trip, I would say excellent work. Sign up for it. And again, if you want to knock them down a little bit for today, that's fine, because it was embarrassingly bad. It was embarrassingly ugly. I think that's fair. But again, I think it shows just kind of where this Warriors team is in the grand scheme of the NBA. Like they, and we can get into it. I mean, you just kind of look around the league and, the Warriors lose today. You look at Dallas lost at home today. The Clippers and Minnesota, the Clippers ended up winning, although the Warriors really aren't fighting the Clippers or Minnesota. Oklahoma City and Phoenix are going to play a little bit later on tonight. But I'm just speaking to Dallas. Yeah, Dallas is not like the Warriors are a game and a half back at Dallas. Like they're catchable. Phoenix is going to be without Devin Booker here. They got beat by Houston last night. They don't have Devin Booker tonight. Booker got hurt late in their home loss to the Rockets last night. Bradley Beal's getting ejected. So I think the truth is, the Pelicans are flawed in their own way and can be somewhat inconsistent and are always one injury away from plummeting. I think the Suns need everybody to be the best version of themselves, and they're not going to have everybody here for a stretch, which I think opens the door for the Warriors. I think it opens the door for a team like Sacramento, who has been up and down playing to the level of their competition. They've got a lot of really good wins, the Kings do. They have some losses, but they've got enough really good wins to more than hold up the games that they've lost, that their fan base I know is frustrated about. And I still think, and I've said this, they're the kind of team that I think they aren't going to crater. And, maybe they aren't going to get white hot, but they aren't going to crater. They're just going to continue to be kind of what they've been. I think they've got an opportunity. Like, I almost view Sacramento in the regular season right now as more apt to be more consistent than Dallas, Phoenix, or the Pelicans. And if the Suns are going to be shorthanded. But what I'm getting at is that opens the door, I feel like, for the Warriors, if they can continue to play at this level, to escape the 7-10 group in the West, despite what we saw today, which was obviously ugly as sin.
I know I discussed some of Andrew Wiggins' game a little bit earlier in the show. We're not going to get into the absence. Promise you all.
They
we have
need
a comment
him, though.
here from Max, and I would have to disagree with this one in the sense that I think he's absolutely made a difference if you're going to talk about defense in particular. And I've kind of died on the hill all year with this one in the sense that Wiggins is not the most exciting or flashy player at times, like compared to some of the players that people would scream about getting minutes instead of Wiggins. But I think if you look at what happened today, and again, Andrew Wiggins playing was not going to flip the results of this one, but kind of another reminder that you sort of need that steady presence. Like the Warriors have been so flashy, pizzazzy, the whole run of this dynasty, and Wiggins occasionally makes a big play here and there, a big block or a big dunk. For the most part, what they need at a steady 3 position, I don't think you can just make up for that against good teams. They absolutely need him.
They needed him. They needed him today. I mean, today's like you're not. Here's the reality: you're not beating the Celtics with Moses Moody as your starting three, as well as and again, this plays into what we were just talking about how the Warriors are significantly better than they've been, but they still like you're not beating Moses. You're not beating the Celtics with you're not beating Denver with Moses in a series with Moses Moody as the starting three. You can beat Toronto and shorthanded New York on a road trip and Washington. And again, that doesn't mean that Moses Moody shouldn't be playing as a bench player when you have everybody. But if the Warriors are going to beat the big boys in the NBA, they're going to need Andrew Wiggins, and they need Wiggins and Kuminga. They need Wiggins and Kuminga playing together, with Kuminga playing the way that he's played. Obviously, Steph's got to be significantly better than he was. Draymond didn't have it. I mean, you look at the plus minuses, and again, everybody obviously is going to be a minus. But, I mean, you just look at it.
What was the worst one?
Kuminga was the worst one, but it was very close. Kuminga was minus 30, which was the worst. There were a couple of minus 29s, including Steph Curry and Chris Paul. So Kuminga minus 30, Steph minus 29, Chris Paul minus 29, and then Draymond was minus 24. Gary Payton II minus 23, Moses Moody minus 22, Klay Thompson minus 20, and then that tells it all. If Steph, Klay, Draymond, Moody, Kuminga, and Chris Paul are all minus 20 or worse, and GP2, throw him in there as well, then you're getting thumped in an ugly fashion, historically ugly fashion, as the Celtics beat the Warriors 140 to 88. But no, this is the perfect example of. Yeah, the Celtics are the quintessential team you need Wiggins against, or you need a bona fide starting, like if the Warriors do ultimately decide they're going to move on from Wiggins in the offseason, well, you got to find a bona fide starting three from the outside that's going to come in and play better than Wiggins. Like that's and it ain't Moses Moody. Again, no shade at Moses Moody. But
yeah, why do you hate him? I got to go tweet out that you hate him right now.
But we saw a lot. Look, I think Moses Moody's fine. But we saw the difference in, like, Moses Moody can help you beat Washington and New York. But it was already happening. It happened 2 games in, right? He plays well at MSG, plays well in Washington, and people are already like, Moody should start when Wiggins comes back. Like, no, he shouldn't, actually. Now, should he play? Hell yes, he should play. And again, I've put the onus on Steve Kerr to figure that out. But again, there are some matchups where Moody plays really well. There are some matchups still where he's a young player in this league and he's going to struggle. You take the good with the bad. And again, as far as the regular season goes, you can no problem. Like, again, Moody didn't play well today. Everybody didn't play well today. It's kind of like Kuminga. Kuminga didn't play well today. Everybody didn't play well today. That's fine. But at some point, if you're going to beat the elites of the elites of the elites, these guys are either going to have to play at the best version of themselves, or you're going to have to go into the offseason. And if you're going to take away from this roster, find another player that could come in and play that spot. The Tatums and the Browns and the Giannis's and the Middletons and the wing players in this league, Michael Porter and Aaron Gordon and Jamal Murray as a guard, like the guards and wing, Kentavious Caldwell-Pope. I mean, hell, I know I just named every player in the Nuggets starting lineup that's not Jokic, but they are that good. But those are the kinds of players that you have to be able to counter. And, if the Warriors do still have a weakness, it's the fact that they don't still have enough of those 3-4 type wing players on their roster that can battle the top of the top.
Yeah, I mean, and Max also clarifying in the chat again, and he's like, well, you're not beating the Celtics team regardless of who's at the 3 with that defense. That is fully true. That's today true. Wasn't happening no matter what. Mars Incorporated coming in, a little Twitch comment.
Nice.
Talking about getting slapped by Boston. So again, I don't know. Everyone can go in and out of the stream. So apologies if we're going to repeat ourselves over again. But going back to like my sister's texting me and some more perception of the Warriors if you're not watching every game, I actually think that the Warriors have shown a fair amount of consistency and rotations that work lately. It's totally fair to say that this year they haven't been consistent by and large because the first half of the season it really was not very consistent at all. And no, Mars, you are all good. Come in anytime. Like Hotel California says, you can check out anytime, but you can never leave. So not inappropriate. Do not take it in the wrong way at all. But I just think it goes back to what we were saying, 13-4, one signature win against the Suns. I do think there's been consistency. I think that is something they actually have had. Today was just consistently terrible across the board.
No, it really was. And look, I want to get into some of the other comments here because we're getting a lot of good comments. Karmar, a complete obliteration by virtue of a video game like shooting percentage. I thought that was pretty funny. And yeah, I mean, the Celtics were just on an all-time heater in the early going of this game and really took it to the Warriors. And I mean, you look up, they made 25 3. They were 25 of 49 from three. They
and 15-22 late second quarter.
Yeah, I mean, it was just out of this world. But again, I think the Warriors allowed them to get a rhythm. Like they allowed them to get a rhythm in this game, which I think is one of the more unfortunate, one of the more unfortunate things was how it got to that point. And so, yeah, SG Sports Talk, gut-wrenching loss made me feel sick to my core. See, I kind of feel like this is an easy one if you're a Warrior fan to throw away. Like, I really do. Like, all right, this team's playing well. Stuff happens. They're 13-4 in the last 17. They're 14-6 in the last 20. But it is still, it is still in the back of your mind, that game that makes you think, all right, this team's on a nice run. Credit to them for figuring some things out. But at the same time, this team showed today why they aren't maybe a legitimate contender. I want to stop short of that with them not having Wiggins and not having Podziemski. And look, maybe they have Wiggins and Podziemski and they lose by 20 in this game or 25, and it's still bad. But
let's be clear in that if Steph is not playing A- or better basketball, they're not going anywhere.
Also true. That's a great point. I mean, that it really is. You always have to look at your best players. And that is why I do think, going back to the earlier discussion about Kuminga, again, not to say that it's a big deal in the grand scheme of things that he had a poor game and the Celtics were basically able to get him out of his zones where he's the most effective, but he's become the Warriors' second best offensive player over the last 6 weeks. Yeah. So when it always comes down to your best players. And if you are elevating Kuminga to that level, then he does get, scrutinized is not the right word, but evaluated at that level where he's become somebody that you need to score 20 to 25 to beat a good team. And he gets 6 when everybody else gets 6 or 4, then you're obviously going to be in big time trouble. Regulator chiming in, Brown isn't a good 3-point shooter. He was just hitting them today. Again, that goes back to the defense of basically letting Jaylen Brown take threes. I will say this, that there is a devil's advocate point. I won't be too long on it, but the reality, I mean, the Celtics, when the Celtics struggle, the Celtics do get a little 3 happy. And they turn it over a little bit. Now, I don't think they had a single turnover in the first quarter because the Warriors weren't really pressuring the ball either. But
was there like 20 assists to 1 turnover at one point?
At one point, it was, they had 20 assists to 1 turnover, which obviously means you're making a ton of shots. But it also means that you're not really getting pressured. And I didn't think the Warriors had any level of defensive pressure. Yes, the Celtics were hot. Yes, the Celtics were making everything. But there really wasn't the level of defensive pressure that I think the Warriors, truly needed to be competitive in this game. And so, I think that's obviously unfortunate. It was really, Joe H saying, good thing the Mavs lost 2. Yeah, absolutely. Regulator just shows how lethal Boston is. Don't take anything away from this. Got a couple of people that said, hey, I like KNBR. Appreciate that. We like KNBR too, as well.
Hey, we like positivity.
Thanks, Julian. Thanks, SG. And yeah, I like folks welcoming each other into the chat. Like I like it when somebody will show up in the chat and be like, hey, what's going on, SG? Hey, what's going on, CA? CA, one of our faves here in the YouTube chat on these Dubs OT shows.
By the way,
as
CA,
well.
enjoying the wall tutorial yesterday. So, but listen, like all jokes aside, with my ridiculous decorations on the wall, in terms of involvement with the fans, our viewers, our listeners, like you guys are just as much part of the show as we are. So the fact that you're always able to come and hang out with us after a Warriors game, whether it's a great win or a 52-point loss, like, that's why we're here. So it's a good time for us. It's a good way to spend the weekends. I just wish that I was having as much fun the previous couple hours as I am right now.
Yeah, and we should just let everybody know. I mean, we're live on YouTube and Twitch and Twitter/X after every game, and we will be after every game. We got 22 to go. I know we talked yesterday on Just Dubs. The Warriors aren't going to play for over 72 hours, right? It's about 75 and a half hours until the Warriors will next play on Wednesday. This right now today, this is the longest break that the Warriors have between games for the rest of the season. This long, couple of days plus half of this Sunday. There's only one other instance where they have 2 off days in between games. It's coming up in a couple of weeks, and they're going to finish with 17 games in the final 30 days on the NBA calendar, and we're going to be here for all of it. And we couldn't be more thrilled to be here for all of it as the Warriors attempt to make this run. A blip today, an ugly one today, but an opportunity for the Warriors to get back home and play better basketball at home. It's interesting. The Warriors have played, I think, better basketball at home against the better teams. I think against the middling to lesser teams, they've actually played better games on the road overall, more consistent games on the road. So I think Milwaukee at home, again, going to the conversation we had earlier, when you look a little bit at Milwaukee, Milwaukee at home is Milwaukee. What do we got? Who's messing with you there? Who is
I might have to take that up with the boss. Oh wait, I can't, because he's the one that just came in and shoved me. So. Oh,
is it Copes? Copes is here. What's going on, Copes? Good to see you, man.
He ran in just to give me a nice little shove and then dipped. So
I faked like I was going to do that when I was in the office earlier in the week, but I didn't actually do it. Like he was on the air with Tom, and I kind of faked at that front door to the studio, like, I'm gonna come after you. And he was like, what? Bring it. And then I cowered. I didn't have.
Yeah, well, probably good. You've only been here a few months,
I didn't have the guts to do it. I didn't have the guts to do it. And so, yeah, tough one, embarrassing game, but only one game. That also from Regulator. Douglas Mike's always some salient points. If Steph doesn't figure out that recent habit of where it takes him a whole half to get going, that will be problematic in the playoffs. I mean, you said it, Greg. If he doesn't play at an extremely high level, and that's been the case all year, the Warriors really, they got a couple of wins where he hasn't played well. Washington was a game where he didn't play well early in that game, and the Warriors were able to get contributions from others and win. But yeah, it's.
I mean, to me, it's like if you get a great version of CP3, a really solid version of Clay off the bench, Draymond playing his best defense, Wiggins and Kuminga doing their thing, Pajemski contributing, and Steph is playing B- basketball or less, you're still not going to get out of a series in the West. No, against probably anybody. I don't think you get past a Dallas or a New Orleans.
No doubt. No doubt. Some other comments. Although I'm not totally sold on Dallas and New Orleans, especially Dallas. I don't love Dallas. I think they're kind of frauds. I think they are. they seem to me to be play-in tournament destined. I think at this point, Karmar, if Kuminga gets locked down in the games that matter, who's going to pick up the secondary scoring? Steph can't shoulder everything. I know I sort of downplayed that when Kuminga had stopped scoring at the rate he had been scoring at really before the last 3 games. He's been back at that 20s range these last 3. But before that, there'd been a stretch where he had been in the 20s for a few weeks, and then it kind of dipped into the teens again. And, I'd kind of downplayed it. Like, hey, the Warriors have this thing dialed to where it can be a different person on a different night. I still, for the most part, think that. But again, I mean, there is something to be said for if he truly is their number 2 scorer, then that means that in the biggest games, teams are going to pay a lot more attention to him. And I will say, I do think some of his success has been because a lot of teams either just are incapable from a talent standpoint of stopping him, number one, which that's, but I also think in the regular season, you don't get the full consistent, this guy's number 2 on our scouting report, take him out of the game, type thing. I think his successes have caught some other teams, I think, off guard in terms of how you have to defend him. And I think he's been, again, all credit to him, he's been able to take advantage of that. But if he's the number 2 and he isn't scoring, that's been a huge problem for the Warriors all season long, because there really hasn't been anybody else other than a Clay game here, a Wiggins game there, that's been able to carry the load.
Yeah. Hey, also shout out to is it Digby Sow out in Boston as a
Love
Dubs
it.
fan. First of all, appreciate the support, and secondly, just want to say that I'm happy that you're on East Coast time. The day is not too far from being done. Tomorrow's anew.
Yeah, tomorrow's anew. Already 6:37 out there on the East Coast. CA chiming in.
Does that mean you're listening when we're up at like 2 a.m. your time? That
probably
maybe he's a podcast guy.
Probably. Yeah, you can listen to it the next day. You can do it. You got a lot of options. But yeah, 2 o'clock's not. I think I went to bed after 2 last night. 2 o'clock's not.
Well, you don't
not
sleep.
Not too crazy. Yeah, sometimes I get it in when I can. CA Tatum owned JK today, but that's okay. Chalk it up to the game and move on to the Bucks on Wednesday. Totally agree with that. Max Lopez letting Jaylen Brown shoot was the dumbest thing I've seen them do all season. We need to get over the idea we can disrespect anyone, let alone this team. Your thoughts? Fair point.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, short and sweet to the point there. I know our buddy Douglas Mikes has chimed in a few times with the 4-guard lineup that caused the Celtics to go on a run. Let's stop the narrative that Kerr was right to DNP Moody due to lineup imbalance. Again, they used the same rotation that they've used over the last few weeks. They just didn't have Wiggins and didn't have Podziemski. As far as the Moody part, again, sometimes some matchups they view him as a 2, other matchups they view him as a 3. I think there's minutes to be had. Again, I don't know. Is he going to be playing over Quinones? Probably but Quinones is not somebody that's playing every game. I just don't. The bigger point I wanted to get into off of that, Greg, was not the Moody point, but it was more just the rotational point. And look, Moody starts with Wiggins out, Clay starts with Podziemski out, and that Peyton came in for Kuminga. Kuminga came in for Peyton. They flip-flopped Draymond and Trace. Or they flip-flopped Trace Jackson Davis and Looney. So Trace, to basically get Looney, to get Kuminga more minutes, to get Kuminga out there with Looney at the start of the second quarter, which ditched Saric until the game got out of hand late in the first half, which is something that a lot of people have been calling for. But with Wiggins and Podziemski out, Chris Paul's going to be the backup point guard, and the next man up is going to be Lester Quinones. So when Podziemski comes back, Quinones doesn't play. When Wiggins comes back, it does mean Moody plays less. How less? I don't know, but I'm looking at my little rotation, my little Mike Brown rotation card cheat sheet that basically Mike Brown, now the head coach of the Kings, just kind of got a little sneak peek of it. So I kind of keep it on the computer screen. It's the same rotation they've used. Over the last couple of weeks, just with Moody getting Wiggins time and Quinones getting the backup time that's opened up, some of it because Podziemski's been out.
Yeah, and fortunately this Podziemski injury doesn't seem to be too long lasting, because it's funny how the narrative flipped on Podziemski too, by the way. It was, this guy needs to start, this guy needs to close, and then Moody played so well these last few games that everyone was clamoring for fewer Podziemski minutes. And I'm not saying Podziemski needs to play as much as he was playing when Chris Paul was out, because I think it did wear him down a little bit, but you're going to need a good chunk of Podziemski minutes.
You are going to need a good chunk of Podziemski minutes. And again, it's, Podziemski's a willing defender. He's not like rate the Warrior defenders right now, right? It's, Draymond, Wiggins, GP. Who's next? And in terms of just, who would the next guy be after Draymond, Wiggins, and Gary Payton? Kuminga lately, probably, but not consistently.
I'd say him probably. Yeah, overall, I'd say Kuminga.
Yeah. Okay. And then, okay, that's fine. Who's next after that? Podziemski? Let's throw Biggs out.
Play against the Jazz?
Let's throw Biggs out of the equation. We can throw Looney, TJD. We're talking about guard / wing defenders. It's got to be Podziemski, right? Yeah. I think it's Podziemski. I think Podziemski at this point is a better defender than Klay Thompson is. I think that's just it's an unfortunate reality at this point, right? So you're missing. The point is you're missing two of your top 5 defenders if you're counting Kuminga basically in that top 5 as well. And so I think that makes it difficult to guard. Cool breeze. Wiggins has played, I'll say it since we're not on the air, shitty, except for about 4 games and had 3 okay games. So he has played bad. Wiggins been a lot better than that the last 6 weeks. A lot better than that the last 6 weeks. That sounds like the October to about January version of Andrew. It sounds like somebody who hasn't watched the Warriors since about January 12th, where Wiggins has actually been pretty darn good. Again, Douglas Mikes, I'm okay with Wiggins having his hiatus again this season. This season is washed. I wanted to say this. I still feel like the Warriors are in a better position to make a run this year than they were last year. Fair or unfair?
Fair.
Okay.
Fair. Yeah.
Fair. Yeah. I still
similar. Think. Now if you want to put a counter argument, you could say, well, last year they had 2 stretches of extended time with no Steph Curry, and they were able to stay afloat. On the other side of that, the West is better to me than it was last year. So if you
say that again.
I'm saying I think it's fair that they're in better shape, because even though last year they had Steph out for a couple of stretches and they still were able to stay afloat, and they could not do that this year, I also think that the West is much tougher from 1 to 10 than it was last year. And
right.
Yeah. And I think the turning a corner, the finding an identity, like that counts for something, even if you play the best teams and you lose. And then today it was like, you do not belong on the same floor. Whereas last year, they were just kind of consistently inconsistent from start to finish.
I think that's well said. I think, they never really felt like they had any action truly until the final 5 or 6 games. And then it was like, okay, they got the 6 seed. They got the matchup that they wanted. And then in 7, they were able to, I don't want to say handle business, eke it out against a Sacramento team that was, pretty formidable, honestly.
You could make the argument that the Kings kind of outplayed them for a majority of that series, but Game 7 happened, and it was I feel like it was one of the best players going crazy in the last game.
I would disagree with that. I do think the Warriors were the better. I mean, the Warriors were right there in Game 1 and Game 2. Those were toss-up games. I thought obviously Game 3 the Warriors were a lot better. I thought the Warriors I thought both teams played a winning game in Game 4. But the Warriors ran him down.
Barnes missed the shot.
Yeah, the Warriors ran him down at the end and had the 5-point lead and then almost gacked it. I mean, with the Curry timeout that the Warriors didn't have that set that whole thing up, and then Harrison Barnes misses the 3. That was a pretty even game. I thought the Warriors played excellent in Game 5. That was, I think, their best game of the whole series. Considering the environment, and I thought they played better in Game 7, but they were on fumes. I mean, and you saw it in the Lakers series. I mean, they were on fumes because of how much that series took out of them. But no, part of the point was I do think Sacramento played a really, 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 really good series and competitive series. And I actually think that, not to get too far in the weeds on them, but I think that actually bodes well for them, as I've said a few times, in the playoffs, regardless of who they play and where their seeding is. Like, I could see them, I don't know who I could see them beating in a series, but I feel like no matter who they play, between Minnesota or OKC or even Denver and the Clippers or the Suns or like whoever they end up playing, I feel like it's going to go 7 games and it's going to be hard fought. And there's going to be times where you think, oh, Sac's going to win this series. And then there's going to be times where you're like, oh, they're not. Like, I feel like they're almost a lock to be, because of the types of games that they play. I almost feel like they're a lock no matter who they play to be the best series in the first round, assuming that they wind up getting a series. Joe H., was that Draymond's call or the coaching staff as far as what was going on with sagging off of Jaylen Brown? I did see this from Kendra Andrews of ESPN. She writes, here within the last 5 minutes, the Warriors didn't come up with their defensive game plan until about 15 minutes before leaving the locker room to try something different and try to find weak spots. Draymond said, quote, "It didn't work. Oh, well, we move on. I thought it was fun to try." That ain't a great quote.
Yeah, no Sounds of Silver today.
No Sounds of Silver today, but that might make Sounds of Silver Wednesday night.
I think it might.
That might make Sounds of Silver Wednesday night. So, I mean, a little bit of 1, 2, 3 San Francisco in that, not 1, 2, 3 Cancun, but a little bit of 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. Get on this plane and get your 6-hour flight back to the Bay and take your 2 days off before you got to play Milwaukee. That. So I don't. Does that answer the question whether it was Draymond's decision or the team? That's let's just call it what it is. That's not a good look. That's not a good look.
No, not a good look for anyone. It's not a good look for coaching or Draymond or anyone in the locker room.
No, not a good look. So yeah, Joe H., a little bit of instant analysis and info from Boston via Kendra Andrews as far as that goes. Guapi 415. You still talking about the playoffs? Yeah, we're still talking about the playoffs. Warriors got a shot to get in the playoffs. What did you have there from Douglas Mikes? Douglas Mikes makes the most appearances, I think, at our chat. He's always a little edgy and honest, but typically has good things to say. Yeah, that's a good. Yeah,
I gotta be honest with everyone. When we played
that's pretty good
sound, Draymond had the whole 3-minute rant, right? So
And then he goes miles.
with
Yeah.
with Kyle Haar, and I was like, just grab a good 35-second clip of it because it was right in the middle of the segment. So I didn't have the chance to listen to the whole thing before we played it. Did not know that was coming. That was a funny one. Caught me off guard.
No doubt. I about stopped the show when I heard that. I'm like, that's no good. Alpha Nickelberry, JD, even though this is a really bad loss, winning 3 of 4, still very good. At the end of the day, they did what they needed to do. And remember, this was the third game in 4 days. I guess it was, right? Yeah, it was 3 and 4 at the beginning and 3 and 4 at the end, and 3 and 4 with an afternoon game. But yeah, that's you got to chalk it up again. You'd much rather chalk today up being 3 and 1 than chalk today up being 2 and 2. Like, I do think there's a significant difference, Greg, between being, you get the first 3. And that's why I thought no excuses. The game in Toronto was so important on Thursday, that they come out and Steve Kerr takes the timeout early and he lights everybody up and he says, no, we're going to fight our asses off to try and get this game. And again, you do that. And that's why Steph plays on Friday in Toronto. That's why Steph plays in Washington at the beginning of the trip, when some people were saying, well, you give him a day off, you might get, you get 3 days off before you got to play on Wednesday. He'll get that today, obviously, although they do have the long flight home. But yeah, I think today you look at the last 3 and the Warriors going all in for it's why you, to bring this one back, this was before our time working together, but it's why you chase wins, Greg. It's why you chase wins.
Yeah, I agree that if they had lost the Toronto game and then today happened, we'd be having a different discussion. As crappy as today felt to watch, and as bad as it looked from a Warrior perspective, you still didn't shoot yourself in the foot coming out of the road trip. But now you got to go back and refocus. Like, that's the challenge, is to make this that be a one-off, if that's what we're going to call it. I still don't love the term one-off.
It's more than a one-off, because you do learn some things about this team in this game, right? So it's not a one-off, but you also accomplished a really good week. Max Lopez, 3 and 1's not solid when you completely get embarrassed on national TV by a top team, when you continue to show you can't beat top teams. That's the counter to that. And so again, there was a back and forth going on in the chat, which I think was good. Our buddy Fozzie, not so much a bad loss to me, more of playing the best team in the league at the end of an East Coast trip, kind of a loss. Mickey D, Warriors have not played well in marquee games. They won't get as many next year. Let me tell you something. The Warriors have Stephen Curry. They're getting as many marquee games as they possibly can get, which I think is 25 or 30. I forget. The number's changed, I think, than it used to be. But yeah, I think it's you can get 30. I want to say you can get 30 TNT and ESPN games, NBA TV notwithstanding, as far as that goes. Enrique Rivera, Warriors on the decline, lottery next year if moves aren't made. I mean, that's the beauty of this offseason, is they can determine how this season ends and what they need to do to get better. I still don't know how they get better, though. And again, I'm not saying you should trade Kuminga or anything like that. I still don't see how they get significantly better unless they would be open to that. You do have the Chris Paul trade chip. You do have Wiggins. Again, I don't think he has a lot of value across the league. So I think the one thing, though, that they've kind of proven, and we don't know until the end of the regular season, but they don't appear to be on the decline like they did a month and a half ago. I will say that.
Yeah, no, I don't think so. I think it's still a different team. And they're not in the decline in that sense. I mean, just to put it in a little bit of perspective, what were they, 5 over 500 heading into today?
Yeah, top,
and they were
high water mark of the season.
And we're wondering if the All-Star break comes around, we're like, what kind of tone are our shows going to take? Because we didn't know what sort of form the team was going to be in. So You start playing the math game of, can they win 5 of 6? Can they win 3 of 4? They've done 13 of 17, 14 of 20. So they have had a larger bunch. And I genuinely think that the Warriors team of a couple of months ago, especially like early January, late December, they would have lost to the Knicks without Julius Randle and OG Anunoby. They definitely would have lost to the Raptors when they had the plane issue. Like, there are type of games where it's easy to just look at the results and move on, more so on a win than in a loss. But I do think they've gotten it together to some degree, and they're missing 2 starters right now, and they don't have a lot of margin for error in terms of health and injury and absences. Like, I will say that. You need Steph Curry to play really good basketball, and you need everybody's availability, I think, if you want to have a shot to get into the playoffs and pull at least one upset of a series.
Yeah, for sure. And again, I'm going to use the 14-6 example over the 13-4 example because I think it's a little bit more fair in evaluating this stretch. That's still 700 ball. And if the Warriors do that over the final 22, it would be 15 wins. That they would end up 47 and 35. And if they end up 47 and 35, you look at it for the Warriors, that's really going to put them in a position to be 5 or 6 in all likelihood. I mean, very close. Right now, the Pelicans are playing at a 48 win pace, and you look at where the Suns are at, and they're playing at a 47 win pace. So basically, the 6 seed right now is playing at a 47 win pace. And so, that again, if the Warriors can do 14-6, the rest of the way, or 15-7, basically is what that would extrapolate out to over the 22, then I think they're going to have a shot. I think they're going to have a shot. Can they do it? Yeah, they're going to have to beat a couple of good teams, I think, between now and the end of the year to do it. But I think they're capable of it.
I think so too. Again, 3-1 with losing to the Celtics and then being able to refocus is still better to me than beating the Celtics and being 5-5 over the stretch of the next 10.
Yeah, it's Dubs OT with JD and Greg here, KNBR, the sports leader, as we are on YouTube and Twitch and X. Appreciate everybody. A lot of great comments. We've had really good interaction. Some of these YouTube-only shows have done really well in terms of the viewership and the participation. And so we really appreciate everybody as always. Again, we're going to be here with you after all of these final 22 games in some form or fashion, back on the radio as well from Harmonic Brewing on Wednesday for the Warriors and the Milwaukee Bucks. Ugly one today as the Warriors lose it 140. That's right. 140-88. Warriors were down by as many as 56 in the fourth quarter. It was 118-62. We're going to keep this thing going for about another 10 to 15 minutes or so. So still time to jump in with your comments here. Also still working to let everybody know on the ability to do phone calls on some of these YouTube only shows. Didn't want to rush it for just Dubs. I was kind of looking into the technical aspect of it over the last week here with the Warriors on the road. But that is something that I do think we're going to have the ability to do here down the line before the season ends. Joe H., the disheartening thing as we dig through some comments, I really want to spend a good chunk on comments here for the last 10 plus minutes, and we'll do a quick fun with numbers, although not a lot of them are fun tonight or this afternoon rather. Tonight, if you're watching in Boston, like our friend from earlier. Disheartening thing is we don't know if Wiggins is even coming back. And if he does, will he even be motivated to help the team? Look, I'm really tired of like Wiggins isn't motivated to help the team. I think that's total bullshit. I think that's total. And yeah, I'm just going to say it. I think it's total BS. Yeah. I do think he's coming back. I think the Warriors have said they believe that he's coming back, but we don't have to relitigate everything we've already said about it, but he does care about the team. He does care about his teammates. He does care about helping this team win. Like that's just I think that's wholly unfair to characterize Wiggins' absence, and he played better of late. So again, I'll kind of leave it at that. I know, Greg, you've
the only thing I'll add,
clear.
because I don't want to do my whole rant. I don't want to do my whole rant again either. But just from the perspective of having to interact with these comments or anything on social media about Wiggins that's negative, the team had a member of its coaching staff drop dead at a team dinner 2 months ago. Like, I think we can all just be a little bit more sensitive and empathetic to whatever's going on. And I don't know what's going on with Wiggins. It's also nobody's business to figure out what's going on and then decide how much time he should take away from the team. I'm just done having that conversation.
Yeah, I've said that a few times. I even tweeted it out earlier today. Nobody, and that's not where Max specifically is coming from, but I do I have a problem with questioning Wiggins' motivation to the team. I think that's BS. I think that's wholly unfair. Again, as far as the rest of it goes, I also think it's wholly unfair to demand that the public knows the reason, so the public then and sports talk radio, more to the point, can litigate whether it's correct or not. 808 KNBR, is it fair? Miss me with that nonsense. But I do think I'm not talking about our hosts specifically, but I do think I do think there are some in the what big media, small, whatever, new media, old media, whatever you want to call it. I do think there are some, and certainly in the fan base, that are like, we need to know, and we need, and then we can talk about whether it's fair or right. Like, miss me with all of that. Just to let you know, Max, we were not coming after you.
Yeah, it's a buildup of things we have seen over the course of a week.
Yeah, I make that clear. I know Max was not questioning that by any stretch, but I do think, I think Wiggins, at the point where he feels comfortable enough to return, is all in. And to be honest, you can make the case that Wiggins, if he's not in a place where he feels he can play and be effective, it's better for him not to be around until he gets right, or until his family issues are dealt with. Like, you'd rather have a guy so I think once he comes back, that's when you can say, okay, he's ready to help. And so I haven't sensed or viewed any of it that way whatsoever. Another comment, regulator, did people say this was a house money game? Well, one person did. You can guess who it was. There was one person that said it was a house money game. Anybody want to guess who it was? Greg, you're ineligible. You're ineligible to answer, but it shouldn't be that far off. Single digits. There was no single digits in this one for a very long time. But that's a little hint there. But no, there was no. There was I only heard one say house money game. Maybe it came up on the ABC pregame show where I thought it was funny. Did you catch Stephen A. Smith with a rare rant? Not only on the Warriors performance, but Bob Myers, who was sitting there on the panel, and they were demanding Bob Myers be accountable for the Warriors' failures, and he didn't want to have it.
Yeah, no, I did cut that rant. I mean, there's nothing to say to defend it at halftime, though. I'll say that 82-38. That was something. But let's see what else. Yeah, Jack, back to the one-offs. They've already overdone their quota. So,
well, they have. How many though have been in the last 20? That's the one. How many one-offs in the last 20? I mean, just today?
Clippers.
Blowing the lead.
They had a nice lead.
Yeah. I mean, Kerr did say one-off after. I knew there was one. He did say one. Okay. And that's a little That's a little different, but
Kawhi wasn't playing. Paul George fouled out. Ty Lue got ejected. Didn't finish the job.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
I think that one's fair. Carmar, they have one signature win all season against the very same Boston team. Again, I would put the Phoenix game in there. Are there other ones like that? That's and no wins against Denver. They beat OKC early before everybody knew how good OKC was, or when OKC
twice again. They had two brutal ones against the Clippers, if you count the up 22 game.
No, I'm talking about wins. I'm talking about I'm talking about signature wins. How many signature wins?
That's it. I think the double overtime game against the Lakers would have been in there. Not that the Lakers are any better record-wise than the Warriors, but just for how incredible of a game that was, I would have put that in there.
Okay, that's interesting. That's interesting. Amar Singh.
Oh, they squeaked by the Pistons in December.
Was that? Yeah. Was it December? Was it January? That was January.
Might have been January.
That was the night. Right? That was the night after the Denver, the Denver game. Moody isn't a starter on a good team. No way. I mean, I think that's probably true. He at least isn't at this point in his in his career. But he's filled in capably. I think that's all fair. Just kind of going through, trying to wind down a lot of the chat here. Anything else stand out? Amar kind of added to that. Amar Singh, Moody is a good role player. That's it. People overhype our young guys, and it's pathetic. Those guys have limitations. Kuminga's handle is a severe limitation. He needs to work on his handle. I think severe limitation is probably an overstatement but it is a limitation. That is an area where he does need to get better with it. And I think that's, he needs to get better there. He needs to get better if he's going to take those turnaround jumpers like he's Kobe Bryant. He does need to get better at knocking those jumpers down. But look, they don't have perfect young players, but they have capable young players over the last 6 weeks, and I think that's been a lot more positive than negative.
Well, also I like to look at the draft too, and if you consider picks 19 and 57 or trading into Trayce Jackson-Davis, I guess they certainly have overdone that status to this point.
Yeah. Wait, say that again. I was kind of looking down at
for having picks 19 and 57 in this year's draft.
Yeah.
Like they've certainly outperformed those marks.
They have. I mean, the Podziemski pick looks like a plus to the value of where he was. Trayce Jackson-Davis for sure. I mean, again, Kuminga's coming around, right? Moody, productive. So I don't think some of the criticisms have been as bad there. Douglas Mike says that Dallas and the Suns are frauds. I don't think the Suns are frauds when they have everybody, but I'm not sure they're legitimate contenders. As far as that goes. But I think the Suns are really good when they have everybody. You take one away, and I think they quickly go to a point where they're not. They're not only are they not contenders, but they're basically, I think, 7. Like, it wouldn't surprise me at all if Booker's got to miss time, and I know he's missing the game tonight. But if Booker had to miss significant time, then I think they dip to set the 7 to 10 conversation in all likelihood. I think they've proven that they need all three of those guys basically able to be able to play. Max Lopez says the Bucks game will tell us a ton. How much you kind of putting on the Bucks game? It's a home game against a good team. The Bucks are playing better. They had struggled initially after the Doc Rivers hire, but they've won 5 consecutive games, and I'm just kind of looking around at what Milwaukee's got coming up. They play the Clippers tomorrow at home before coming out to the West to take on the Warriors and others beginning on Wednesday.
Well, you lose that game against the Bucks in a ugly fashion coming off the heels of this one. I think it's going to be a little bit more of a concerned discourse. I'll say that.
Yeah, I think that's fair. I think that's definitely fair. Let's do a quick fun with numbers. And then we'll end it on that note. And again, we appreciate everybody watching on YouTube and Twitch here. A lot of great comments as well here on Dubs OT with JD and Greg Silver for KNBR, the sports leader, as the Warriors lost in dramatically ugly fashion in Boston. Snapping the
I need my
game.
gutless drop right now.
It was yeah. You went 8 in a row on the road. You're 3-0. I don't think I can say gutless today. I really don't. Down a couple. It's pushing the brink of gutless, but I don't think it's full blown gutless. It did end the 8-game road winning streak as we get into some fun with numbers here, which had been tied with the Celtics for the longest road winning streak in the NBA this season. Warriors have still won 9 of their last 11 on the road overall, 16-13 on the road. They split the season series with the Celtics. The Warriors scored a season low 88 in this one. The previous season low was 97. Going back a week ago, the game against Charlotte a week ago on Friday. Season low 38 first half points, fewest points in any half for a team this season. They gave up 82, which is the most they've allowed in any half this season. And also the lead of 44 for the Celtics. That was the largest halftime lead for the Celtics in franchise history for Boston, which is saying something. Fourth time this season, the Warriors have allowed 140 or more. The Warriors, not surprisingly, are 0-4 in all of those games. One little milestone to point out, Klay Thompson did become the 7th player in NBA history to hit 2,400 threes in this one. Rough afternoon for Klay, as it was a rough afternoon for everybody in Boston.
Yeah, he can join LeBron James in the milestone celebration as far as it goes to translating to wins.
Exactly, and that was before Klay left the game, went to the locker room. And did you see what the injury was for Klay Thompson?
Left hamstring tightness.
Yeah, tightness. So that is something obviously to monitor. But the Warriors will be able to get home today, take tomorrow off, have a practice Tuesday, and be back in action on Wednesday against Milwaukee. That'll do it for us. Greg, final quick couple of thoughts, and then we'll get everybody set up for what's coming up on Wednesday.
Yeah, just thank you to everyone as always. Big thank you to you, JD. And we're going to start trying to be pretty proactive. The schedule changes every week. It's a week-to-week schedule. But if we know in advance that we have streaming-only shows like this versus being on the air, we'll try to get that out there so that you guys can know what to expect early, because a lot of our regulars do show up and you don't go unnoticed. So we want to do this for you and anyone else that tunes into Dubs Talk. Hopefully no more games like this one, but we will have some shows coming up and we'll let you know where to find us.
Yeah, and the next one's going to be Wednesday night following the Warriors and the Bucks. I will be at Harmonic Brewing in Thrive City, so if you're coming to the game, stop by and say hi. Again, the offer stands. You stop by during Dubs OT at Harmonic and you say, hey, I'm here to say, I heard JD say I'll buy you a beer, and I'll buy you a beer. That offer still stands for those that come to Harmonic Brewing. Again, you mentioned it, you heard us here on the YouTube chat today, and JD will set you up with Julia or Mike or Jimmy or Grace, and we'll get you set up with a Kolsch or whatever you prefer to drink. If you like something a little bit different, we can do that as well. So we'll talk to you then right around 9:30 on Wednesday. For Greg Silver, I'm John Dickinson.
We need a tablecloth so that people can come by and they can.
It's been ordered. You didn't know this. That was ordered actually on what we did. I went out to I've been out to Harmonic twice and tested some tablecloths, and we were going to have a new camera set up on Wednesday as well. It's not going to be we're going to have a different camera set up on Wednesday. So we got a lot of good stuff coming on Wednesday from Harmonic. So stop by and say hi. We're out there Thursday as well as Saturday, another 3 and 4, beginning with the Warriors and the Bucks. For Greg, I'm JD. Appreciate everybody watching. You can find this in podcast form. It'll be dropped a little bit later. We got to let Greg get to Giants coverage on KNBR, and we'll talk to you Wednesday here on the Sports